While Jim Ertner, or Jim, call you up here. One place is still open in Punslingers. Please go to the registration table now. We don't want an odd man out. Jim Ertner, who was last year Punster of the Year? 2 years ago, Punster of the Year, former champion in Punniest of Show, is going to do a little demo for you here of a new routine that he would be competing with if we had let him compete this year. So, no judging. Let's take this one. So just a little demo round while we tally up the scores here and get the contestants. Thank you, Jim Ertner.
10 years ago, I did an ABC Premier Animal Puns, and 4 years after that, I did a second one. I've got a third one, but I don't think it'll make too much sense to everybody unless I quickly do the first two. So, 10 years ago, you heard this one. There's a little known animal that begins with the letter X. First of all, can everybody hear this, or should I take another? How about this one? Can you hear this? Nobody can hear it. How about this?
Yeah.
All right, the first of three. There's a little known animal that begins with the letter X. It's actually a Greek swordfish, and it's spelled Xiphiidae, and it's pronounced Xiphiidae. As the late Paul Harvey might have said, now for the rest of the story. I'd like to present an ABC primer on animal puns. Here I go. I'd bark a million miles if I could just put 26 animal puns together in alphabetical order. I'd badger you and I'd keep carping on the subject until I have no more ideas left. I'd have no regrets, however, as I continue to ferret out more animal puns and if necessary even go for broke. Now some may say that this is a harebrained idea, but I want to tell you, I'm no jackass, and I kid you not. I'm not doing this for a lark, although maybe just a mite. So please don't nag me. In fact, you ought to try to parrot me. But don't quail from the challenge, because you don't have to be a raccoon tour. So just salmon up some courage before you take a turn for the worse. Don't worry if people say to you, unicorniest person I've ever seen. Stop your crying and viper nose and say, wallaby a son of a gun, and start singing zippity-doo-dah Xiphiidae. And soon you'll be a yak of all trades and can put all these animal puns in a book called Who's Zoo. 4 years later, thank you. 4 years later, after Richard Leder and I came out with our book, The Giant Book of Animal Jokes, I was inspired to do another one, and this is what it was. I will not cast aspersion on my previous performance, but I will buck the trend of not repeating the same theme. I hope it won't be a catastrophe and I start dragging my feet. Hope there's no ill will towards me, because I just want to have a lot of fun. In fact, I'll go to any lengths to keep these animal puns going forever and heifer. Now I'm going to toe the line and won't give up an inchworm as I search for more animal puns. If I have to search for puns at night, I'll just have to use a jack-o'-lantern. As always, my goal is to maintain the qualities of these animal puns. If I can offer anybody any suggestions on animal punning, just let me know. If you're not sure, you can mull it over for a while, but don't be bashful, because in this case, no news is bad news. Now, if I'm in your neighborhood, I'll stop by or visit, if I pass by your house. I'll drive carefully, because I don't want to be accident-prone. When I come, I promise I won't cold-hog the conversation. Well, you must think I'm a raving lunatic to keep up the shrimply awful animal punning, when in fact I'm really thrush with delight and urgent to tell more. So are you vixen to invite me over? If so, I think we will have a good time together. We can sit around and talk about the death of skate or rayfish, commonly known as x-rays, or we can dress up, go out and yak it up for a while. Finally, though, if a female comes with us, she's going to have to be sure to wear, as the French say, a zebra. Last year, Richard Leder and I came out with two new books, Super Funny Animal Jokes and Wild and Wacky Animal Jokes. And just last month, we came out with two more to complete this series of four of them in what's called the Animal Cracker series. It's rip-roaring animal jokes and cleverly comical animal jokes. I've got 4 sets of the 4 sitting over here for anybody who's interested. But now, with those 4 books in mind, I was inspired to come up with this. Abalone. It was really hard to come up with a third all-new ABC Primer Animal Puns. I had to be very careful that I wouldn't come along too late and do it. It's always been my dogma that I find animal puns very amusing. I mean, give me a finch and a goose, I'll take a mile. I'd rather skip a heartbeat, though, than have to say, I've been seeing you later. I just hope I don't become jaded in telling all these animal puns, although I'm sure it won't krill me to tell a few more, unless, of course, it drives me loony. Now, make no mistake, I'm newt afraid to ask a lot of questions and even pointer out the obvious. For example, if I gave you my favorite writing pen, I wouldn't be afraid to ask for my quill back. Although I might be accused of robbing Peter to pay Paul, whereas I'd consider it a shrewd move. Now when I'm done, I hope that some of you will say to me, you taught us a good lesson in animal punning, and you will carry us back to the good old days. I realized I had free volition to weasel out of this animal punning, but I didn't ever want to have to spoil it for you and say there's no such thing as Xanthus. And I certainly didn't want to just yabby on in meaningless sentences, so I guess all that remains is to say, Zebua later.
Thank you, Jim.